to Darwin and to the tech team who's here filming. I'm really excited about the fact we could put it together so you guys would have this resource. As you complete the writing process, you'll be able to watch the tape that you made and then integrate that into your final draft. I think that's really important. And Diana, thank you so much for supporting. I want to say thanks also to all the advisors, and I'll continue to thank them throughout the time, but I think it's wonderful that we have a community that comes together around learning in this way. And I also want to thank you, students, for the ways in which you support each other. That's been a really beautiful part of my experience at Carroll Morgan, and I think that's a really special thing about this school. In that spirit, Daniel, I want you to poke Manuel because I see that he's falling asleep next to you. So please make sure you keep him awake during the presentation. I am going to open today by reminding you all that there are 2 assignments. If you're in my SEE class, there are 2 assignments you need to complete over the next 2 weeks. One is to do reviews of the presentations. If you do a review of the presentation that happens this morning, you will now be halfway done with that part of the assignment. Okay? And as I mentioned to you guys before, these are things that some students last term forgot, and it's just a shame because it's such an easy way to get those points that round out your grade. Okay? So please remind each other about that. Okay? So with that in mind, I want to open this term's SEE presentations with the very courageous Luis Andino. Luis, thank you so much for taking the spot and going first. Yay.
Okay, so introductions are always awkward, but it is now time to take the next step forward. Our economy is rapidly shifting. Educators and business leaders are increasingly recognizing that computer science is a new basic skill necessary for economic opportunity and social mobility. Hi, my name is Luis Andino, and today I'll be addressing why computer science education is essential to our global future. On a daily basis, we find ourselves interacting with technology, whether it is our smartphones, tablets, personal computers, or even the internet. We interact with these mediums, yet know very little about the objects that we spend so much time using. This is due to the fact that computer science education is being underfunded on a global scale. Other issues include lack of diversity in the field and the fact that there is an extreme demand and a very low supply of computer science graduates. This reality is derived from a chain of events that involves limited number of professionals in this relatively new field, limited economic allocation for the implementation of education programs, and mediocre awareness regarding the pedagogical benefits of the subject. Globally, we are well overdue to begin implementing computer science as a core subject in all elementary, middle, and high schools. In January 30th, 2016, President Barack Obama proposed that $4 billion be allocated towards the implementation of computer science in grades K to 12. We need to support this proposal. Additionally, we need to encourage the training of professionals to teach this subject and raise awareness of its importance. By doing this, we will incite the implementation of computer science education programs as part of the core curriculum on a global scale. As of this moment, there are a limited number of schools that actually offer computer science classes. According to Megan Dickey, author in TechCrunch, a well-renowned technology youth center, right now only 25% of the K-12 schools in the US offer computer science with programming and coding, and only 28 states allow these credits to count towards high school graduation requirements, according to the White House. This is an alarming piece of news. It means that 75% of the United States, arguably one of the most developed nations in the world, does not have access to proper computer science education. Additionally, according to Jane Margolis, 2 out of the 3 schools offer only low-level, how-to, keyboarding, cutting, and pasting introductory computing classes. Superficial technology, like the one described above, is the equivalent of learning how to use a calculator in order to perform a mathematical equation. It does not teach students how the results they are dependent on is achieved. Another persistent issue in computer science education is the fact that there's a very limited diversity, both gender and race-wise, in the few schools that do offer the course. For example, Leanna Hayton, an editor for Education Week, in discussing the AP Computer Science exam said, in 2013, no African American students took the exam in a total of 11 states, and no Hispanic students took it in 8 states. Fewer than 20% of the test takers were female, and 3 states had absolutely no female test takers. Her assertion, corroborated by the following data, which shows the male to female ratio in the AP computer exams from the years 2001 to 2014, make it evident that race and gender diversity are in fact lacking in AP computer science classes. Such trends must not be taken lightly. The percentages of female and minorities taking the AP computer science exam are ridiculously small. In our attitudes towards computer science education, another issue that is present that adds to the necessity for immediate change is the fact that there is a very high demand and an extremely low supply of computer science graduates. In fact, according to a graph published by Code.org, one of the most famous computer science organizations, 71% of all jobs in STEM are in computing, yet only 8% of all STEM graduates are computer scientists. This statistic directly proves the necessity of broadening access to the computer science courses spectrum on a global scale, and it confirms that there are a lot of opportunities out there for computer scientists. As Megan Smith, in her article for the White House regarding the Computer Science for All initiative proposed by President Barack Obama in January this year, writes, last year, there were more than 600,000 high-paying tech jobs across the United States that were unfilled. This supports my previous claims based on preceding evidence. Computer science as a profession currently has one of the widest range of opportunities. We must not let these opportunities slip away from further generations. There are several reasons for the current popularity of computer science courses. One of the most prevailing one being limited awareness of the pedagogical benefits of computer science. As mentioned on the Code.org website, computer science develops students' computational and critical thinking skills and shows them how to create, not only use, new technologies. This fundamental knowledge is needed to prepare students for the 21st century, regardless of their ultimate field of study or occupation. This supports the fact that CS has many little-known benefits that make it a great subject to teach and to learn. Similarly, a quote from creative genius Steve Jobs, co-founder, chairman, and former chief executive officer of Apple Incorporated says, computer science is a liberal art. It is something that everyone should be exposed to. Everybody should have a mastery of to some extent. I'd like to think that Isaac Newton's success was derived from the fact that, as he put it, he stood on the shoulders of giants. We too should follow the advice of our generation's giants by internalizing and actualizing Jobs' recommendation that everyone take advantage of the benefits that computer science brings. We can ensure a global betterment in the field of technology. In the past, a clear cause of the deficiency in computer science education field was the limited funding. Professor Chris Stevenson writes, schools alone cannot achieve these outcomes. This issue requires a national vision, supportive action, and commitment at all levels of the political and educational systems. This quote strikes gold. We need to promote the involvement of as most institutions as possible. Funding a subject like computer science is very expensive and requires a lot of support. Furthermore, as posted in an article written for Code.org, because computer science courses are often electives, there is a lack of funding for professional development and staffing support at the district level. This is a tragic reality. Computer science courses are receiving very little attention from third-party organizations, and within the limited amount of organizations that actually exist, very little of them are contributing enough. Part of the cause of the problem is that there are very few professionals available to teach computer science. In her article, Leanna Hayton quotes Professor Erickson of Georgia Tech, as she explains that the situation is very similar to a chicken and an egg problem. She mentions teacher certification programs do not train teachers because there's no state computer science certification, and the states won't create a certification program because there is no teacher training for it. This is clearly an issue that must be addressed. The problem is like a never-ending loop that feeds itself. In addition, since there are few computer science teachers, among those who are proficient in computer science, turnover can be a problem. They often leave the classroom for more lucrative jobs in the industry. Schools often pay low wages to computer science teachers compared to jobs in the private sector. Therefore, if you're certified in computer science, it is highly unlikely that you might pursue teaching as a profession. As could be expected, all problems have an adjudicated solution. For example, using federal funds to train teachers properly, we can eradicate the education deficit that currently limits computer science education. Furthermore, we can break the negative cycle of lack of teacher training by creating navigatable and rewarding professional paths tied to content knowledge for computer science teachers. In that way, we can grow their ranks. This implies that training teachers is one of the most promising steps to take if we are serious about broadening computer science frontiers. Yet I believe that one of the most important solutions is to support Obama's funding proposal. As is mentioned by Emma Brown in her article written for the Washington Post, if Congress approves the president's budget's request, the $4 billion would be doled out over a period of 3 years to any state that applies for the funds and has a well-designed plan to expand access to computer science courses, especially for girls and minorities. In the event of the approval, the money released can be used to fund teacher education and to educate the public about the importance of computer science curriculum. And these are essential steps to take in programming change. If this proposal is approved, I believe we have taken a giant leap towards the progress of human nature. A leap that will set our road on both the long and short run many years ahead. Ultimately, however, it is not enough to solve this problem in the United States alone. We must raise awareness of the problem globally. If funds for formal education are not available, students, teachers, and parents should feel inspired to demand change. Parents around the world should encourage their children to take online courses that teach computer science. If this happens, schools will start noticing the trends and will start implementing computer science at their very institutions. In fact, open source education may be the most effective solution to the problem of how to bring computer science education to developing nations. Kids will find computer programming fun, and there are a lot of excellent available sources like edX and Codecademy, and many more that properly teach the courses. There is currently a deficit in the world of computer science pedagogy. This is due to limited funding for such programs in schools, limited number of professionals prepared to teach the subject, and the little existing awareness of the importance of such curriculum. As a result, few schools offer the course, and it is certainly not considered part of the core curriculum. Gladly, there are steps we can take that will aid the future of computer science education. These include, but are not limited to, supporting Obama's proposal that the United States put $4 billion towards the implementation of the subject, training teachers properly, and raising awareness. Once Mathematicians and scribes were limited to only the most elite of people. Yet this changed once everyday life involved reading and performing basic mathematical equations. We are now in the 21st century, a century dominated by technology, and that begs the question. Is it not our time to start understanding these technologies that make our lives possible? Thank you. Now I will be taking questions from those of you in the audience who are interested in this one. Careful.
So, given that resources are so few, particularly in the United States, if you had to cut a portion of the high school curriculum and not teach a subject or class, what would you cut and replace in order to put computer science in law?
I wouldn't think about it in terms of cutting, but rather, I've thought of this before, and I think that I would rather decide to merge several subjects, especially in the category of STEMs, as I had previously mentioned. I think that mathematics plays, as being a computer science student, I think that I can now recognize that mathematics plays a huge role in computer science. And I believe that if the money could not be allocated, so the $4 billion could not be allocated, I believe that it would be more efficient. So instead of having to cut away any other subjects, simply to merge mathematics and computer science, and that would create the balance that we need. Any other questions? This one. Suggestions for what? I'm sorry, I didn't.
A little louder because the air conditioning's on.
How do you propose encouraging women and minorities to
I think that there are existing initiatives that incentivize computer science, but I think that, well, I'm going to relate this to a book that we're reading now in English class. It's called The Tipping Point, and it talks a lot about how concepts are sticky and how there's a lot of power in the context. And I believe that what the nation requires right now is simply to start making computer science more appealing. And that can happen either by raising awareness, not only to girls and minorities, but as a whole. And then slowly, girls and minorities will also have to start incorporating themselves into the subject. So I believe that, in conclusion, I believe that to make it appealing, that we have to make it appealing to girls and minorities by making it simply a popular course to teach, or simply implementing it as a core subject, as I suggested throughout my whole presentation. And maybe that will inspire at least a portion of these girls and minorities taking the course to feel attached to it and pursue it as a career. Amen. To the extent of my knowledge, no. I believe that the United States is the only country right now that has a proposed plan for allocating at least that amount of money. I believe that, well, in fact, let me take that back. I believe that here in the Dominican Republic, there is currently a small initiative to provide computers or electronic devices to all students across the middle and high schools in public schools in the Dominican Republic. Although I don't believe that has taken the kickstart that it needs in order to be a successful program. And so, in conclusion, I would say that there are, but maybe not as effective as must be in order to work. Ms. Rosa.
How efficiently do you think most people use their computers? I ask this because you mentioned that they're thinking about giving all these kids these computers, right? And I wonder what people will do with them if they're not trained?
So I'm thinking of your question in terms of two parts. First of all, how efficient do people tend to use their devices? And second of all, what would happen if these devices were to be given to the public? Am I correct? Are those right? So the first question, I think that people and every single person in this world, I would say, is not using their computers to a full potential, and that's kind of a statement that is very broad. But I would say that I'm confident saying that not even the best computer scientists out there are sucking out the full potential that our computers today have. Because as I like to think of it, computers will do, or devices will do, as much as you can do. So the computers can understand anything that you would like to tell them, but you just have to know how to tell it to them. So that leads me to the inevitable conclusion that we do not harness the full potential of computers. And moving on to your second question, I believe that if we address this specific country, a country that is inarguably underdeveloped, I would say that it would be very. I would want to see what happens if those people receive devices, given the fact that crime rates are relatively high in this country, and that would incite like stealing, because as we know, well, as I told you, the proposal is not to give everyone in the country, but rather only public school students, and therefore, like, how would a 22-year-old criminal feel if they saw a 12-year-old kid walking in with a computer? It would not be that hard to simply go and assault them for these devices. So that would generate problems as well.
And so you're talking about stealing of the device, but also like, what about the ethical use of the device?
I think that right now that is not a worrisome subject, given that to be able to use a computer or a device in a malicious way, you would have to have a certain extent of knowledge on how the computer or device works. So I would say that currently is not yet an issue. That is an issue that could arise, but that is not something to be worried about right now.
Do you think if we educate people to use these machines effectively, we would see more cybercrime?
I would say yes, and both yes and no. Yes, because obviously, since more people are familiar with these technologies, and they would obviously know the power that you can, and the amount of resources, because malicious use of computer can be very lucrative. But I think that the point is that we are educating these people in a proper way that they won't feel tempted. And I would say that it is a possibility that cybercrime decreases, because at the same time that we're raising black hats, which are malicious hackers, we're also raising more ethical hackers that will balance out the current the problem.
Why do you think computer science lost popularity in our society, given that the audience is moving in class?
In our society or in the global society?
Global society.
Well, there's like that. My presentation, I think, addressed that when I said that computer science is lacking the implementation. So very little people know what computer science actually is. Computer science, at a first glance, to a standard non-computer science oriented person, would sound like an intimidating term. So if I've personally gone by to people and said, "Oh, I'm going to study computer science," and they're like, "Computer science? You must be very smart." In fact, I think that computer science, I think that's the very problem, that people know very little about what actually computer science is, and therefore they don't even have or presented the opportunity to learn at their schools.
We have time for one more question. Are you sure, Stevie? Okay. CJ, were you, or Camilla, was it you?
Yeah.
What was your question? I'm curious. Given that we want to involve more women in this society.
Okay.
In the graph we showed previously about the ratios of the gender ratio, it shows like a huge decline between like 2005 and 2011, something like that. Why do you think that happened?
I couldn't say because actually that wasn't in the scope of my research to find the reasons why these disproportionalities over time. But if I had to make an educated guess, I would say that simply the campaigning because simply the campaigning started growing weaker and weaker as time passed. I mean, it is evident since not only the female to male dropped, but also the whole number of computer scientists. So my guess would have to be that like those initiatives and those campaigns weren't as strong as could have been during the years 2008 to 2010.
Also, the financial crisis was very much.
That also has financial crisis in 2008. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking about.
And you had mentioned third-party funding, right?
Yes.
So do you think that a lot of the funding that currently exists is coming from third parties, not through?
Oh, absolutely. Like there are organizations that are non-profit, like as I mentioned, Code.org. It's one of the most passionate. They are the incentive. They are the parents per se of the initiative called an hour of code, which is like a super global initiative that incites all students to perform an hour of code. I think the school even adjusted our own version of that here with something that we did in the gym. And I believe that currently, definitely, third-party organizations are the ones that are taking responsibility of teaching the course. And they are most likely being funded by those massive organizations like Google, Apple.
And here's why we
And
see.
here's why we see them down.
Great question. You guys are-